Welcome back to Squawk as we are live here in Beijing. Always nice when you can talk to the biggest ad man in the world. And of course, he certainly wouldn't miss the Olympics. Sir Martin Sorrell, the CEO of WPP Group, joins us here as we are overlooking the bird's nest.
Never been called the biggest ad man.
You are.
The shortest ad man, maybe not the biggest.
You got in on Friday.
Yes.
And you've compared the Olympics to sort of a sporting Davos.
Yes.
What sorts of themes are people talking about?
Well, I think Friday night was a tremendous example of Chinese creativity. We saw innovation, technology, scale and implementation, I think, beyond everybody's expectations. It's going to be a very hard act for London to live up to. And the investment, of course, that the Chinese made in the Games in terms of infrastructure, the opening ceremony, the Games themselves, has been colossal. And it's a question of whether we can, in London, match that.
Right. Was all the, and I should say is, all the concern over security and the reaction of the party and police to protests, was that overstated?
Well, I think we've seen secure measures taken at most Olympic Games over the time. I remember incidents even in Atlanta. When I was at the Olympic Games in Atlanta. So it's a difficult situation to manage, and I think the Chinese so far have done an exceptionally good job, and I think the spirit of the Games. So what struck me about the opening ceremony, there was no side. Every country that came in, Iraq, Iran, North Korea, South Korea, Georgia, all of the countries were welcomed spectacularly, and the welcome by the Chinese people is extraordinary. And the other thing, I think we now understand how important the Games is to the Chinese people, how proud they feel about it, and how important it was to them. And I think it's gone off extremely well so far. From a viewing point of view, it's been the most watched Games. From an online point of view, it's probably the first real digital Games that we've had. So it's a big opportunity, not only for the traditional media, but for online media too.
Over the weekend, there's been some talk about our network, NBC, and whether or not a 12-hour delay should even exist in a digital world. Do you think, in this case, it paid off, you could argue, for the network because it built hype during the day?
Right.
But is that scenario? Well,
I got tons of email about why it was that there wasn't live reception of the opening ceremony in America at the time. So we get rid of the Today program and we put live ceremony on. And I think that was a pity. But I hear it was exceptionally well received, and a lot of parties built around it, and a lot of viewing opportunities built around it later in the day.
Right.
And I think I was very intrigued by one comment that Hollywood would plunder the videotape of the ceremony for many years in the future to find ideas. And I think we saw an exceptional performance. Gold medal in terms of presentations.
Well put. Joe, Becky, you got some questions for Sir Martin?
I was the same. I had the same line of thinking as you had just there, Carl. But Sir Martin, whenever you're in, because that's where the growth is, you talk up the web a lot, and we've had that conversation about old media versus new media.
Right.
But it's almost as if the demise of old media has been greatly exaggerated. I think that was shown again over the weekend in the worries about the web cannibalizing network TV and the way that NBC has decided to present it. It hasn't happened yet. This may be, digital is big here, but it certainly hasn't displaced TV. That's how people like to watch this stuff.
As we've discussed, Joe, before, it's only 10% of client budgets. It's 20% of consumer time. By the time clients move their budgets to 20%, we'll be spending more time on the web. But you're right. They all work together. Our media operation, Group M, forecasted that there would be 2.3 billion live viewers of the opening ceremony. So you're absolutely right. The demand for live sporting events, whether it's the Olympic ceremonies, whether it's the Olympic events, FIFA World Cup in South Africa in a couple of years' time, be the same thing. So we are going to see the importance of live events, but online is becoming more prominent. I think there were 17 million hits on the NBC site in the first day. So this is really the first truly digital Games, and we're going to see both become more important. It's going to focus, it's going to polarize what's happening, I think, in the world of old media and new media. But you're right, it is a balance still.
You've been relatively bullish on global economies versus some. Revenue trends in your own business for your own company are doing well.
Right.
Does the Chinese economy need to pause here now once the games end?
We've grown 17% in the first 6 months of this year. We've seen no signs of a slowdown here in China, but I think it's inevitable that we'll see a little bit of a slowdown. You can't continue to grow an economy at 10% compound. The laws of compound arithmetic work against you. But the interesting thing about China is it is an under-branded, under-advertised economy. If the economy is growing at 10, we grow at 20. If the economy grows at 6 or 7, which is probably what it needs to grow at to absorb the rural communities into the urban conurbations here, we'll still see growth of 12 or 14%, and ideally love to get 12 to 14% in the US and in Western Europe. So the pressure will continue to be on, I think, in the traditional markets, in the traditional media.
Yeah, the U.S. has been trying to put pressure on China to change, whether it's about human rights or free trade or piracy. If the games are a huge success and approval ratings for the party here in this country go even higher than they are, what's the party's incentive to change it all?
Well, I think change has come. If we compare the situation here to where it was 10 or 15 years ago, if we were discussing events like this 10 or 15 years ago, or the possibility of it, we would have said impossible. So you've seen massive change. I think that will continue. On the external issues, I think you've seen the government change their point of view. I think through quiet diplomacy, the attitude to even internal issues has shifted, and I think the basic background is pretty good for further change in China. If you open up the economy in the way that they've done, the future growth will depend on free trade. You know, what's driven our company, what's driven the US economy, the Western European economy, South America, Central and Eastern Europe, is all been based on free trade. As long as populism and protectionism doesn't gain hold, it'll be fine. But I think the pressure will be here for continuous improvement and development. And as I say, in order to absorb the 700 million farmers and the agricultural economy into the industrial economy, we need growth in China of 6, 7, 8%.
Yeah, the urbanization here is an amazing story.
Absolutely, and it'll continue.
Always good to see you, Sir Martin.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
With WPP.
Thanks,